So, welcome to another podcast from Agile Technology. Today, we're fortunate enough to be joined by Dr. Kolja Boese from Smith & Nephew. Hello, Doctor.
Hello, Stephen. Pleasure to
Good.
meet you.
Pleasure to meet you again. So, I was wondering if you wouldn't mind telling the audience a little bit about yourself and how you ended up where you are today.
Yeah, thanks, Stephen. So currently I'm heading the medical affairs department with Smith& Nephew, and the medical affairs department is a global group, and we're supporting the all of our franchises. How I ended up there started with me being an orthopedic and trauma surgeon. I started a university career a while ago and trained as an orthopedic and trauma surgeon. And at one point in time, I thought that there must be more to what I can contribute. And I got in touch with the industry and joined a medical tech company. Overall, I'm kind of even now wearing multiple hats. So one hat is being an orthopedic and trauma surgeon. So still working a little bit, mostly pro bono at the moment. I'm a researcher, also with an academic career. So I published a lot of clinical studies. And I'm also a teacher, being a faculty member at the University of Hamburg. I'm teaching medical students and supporting them in their career. And finally, besides my role with the medtech industry, I'm also a father and husband. So my family role is definitely another hat I'm wearing in parallel.
Okay, so what are some of the pivotal experiences in your career that have shaped your perspective on medical affairs?
So pivotal experiences, I'm not sure if I can really say there is one or a multitude of pivotal experiences. It's more a gradual growing into this role and understanding what medical affairs is. When I started out in the industry, I had no clear concept what medical affairs in the industry actually is. And a big step was actually getting into this role, stepping out of the hospital into the industry. And I learned a lot. I learned about regulations, details of regulations, what it actually takes to bring a medical device from ideation into a market, and then make sure it's safe and effective and continuously monitor that. So all that is gradual experience, gradual learning, and it never stops. So you have to continuously adapt to changing regulations, but also novel technologies and changes of state of the art. So if I really have to pick maybe one or two moments in life that shaped my experience or my understanding of medical affairs, it's really the first step, getting into it, practically being exposed to working in such an environment. And now we're currently at the verge of creating a community for medical affairs globally with several other companies, because we do have a gap in understanding what medical affairs actually is in the medtech industry.
Absolutely. So how do you see the role of medical affairs in ensuring regulatory compliance and safety with product development?
So definitely one of our most important aspects of what we do in medical affairs. If we say medical affairs has two phases, one is internal facing, one is external facing. Internal facing for me is everything that has to do with safety. So to be compliant with our regulations, we have to make sure that our devices are safe and effective in general, and medical affairs plays a pivotal role in supporting the companies to achieve that goal. And on one hand, you can't have a medical device without medical experience in the company. So it's crucial to have medical specialists, medically trained people within the company to make sure that devices are actually doing what they're intended to do. And we are the voice of our customers and the patients. So patient centricity is a word that exists everywhere, but I think medical affairs is the heart and soul of making sure we are patients centric in our approaches, and we are really caring for safety of our patients first and foremost of all.
Okay, so can you tell me a little bit about the importance of clinical studies and benefit risk assessment for medtech companies?
So medical studies and benefit risk assessment were probably two slightly different things. I tried to bring it together here, but benefit risk assessment is something we continuously do as medical affairs teams. So we do it in early NPD phases, ideation phase. We have to consider whether development is safe and efficient, and whether the benefits outweigh the risks of such a device. And we will continuously do so with the more knowledge we gain. So knowledge from benchtop testing, early validation testing. And then when it comes into clinical phases, so actual using a medical device in humans, We have to make sure that A, it is safe as far as we can tell before ever doing so, but then continuously monitor the safety of the device throughout its life cycle up until the end when it's phased out or is taken out of the market. A clinical study is more a singular event, although it may be undertaken over a longer period of time. And this clinical evidence will, on one hand, support the benefit-risk profile. So we learn from clinical studies whether a device is effective in what it's doing and what the safety profile actually looks like in real life. And therefore, clinical studies support our understanding of benefit-risk assessments. They provide valuable and very important clinical information. But also, on the other hand, in return, our constant reevaluation of benefit-risk assessments helps us to make sure that our individuals, our subjects in clinical studies are also as safe as they can be.
Okay, so in your experience, how does medical affairs contribute to shaping the direction of new product development, sort of external facing medical affairs?
Oh, we play a significant role in early phases of new product development. So starting at the ideation phase, medical affairs can be a critical voice. So on one hand, we can provide internal knowledge to our teams, to our NPD teams, engineering and driving ideation. We can provide input into user needs and based on one hand, on our own experience, but also we can foster communication with key opinion leaders, with subject matter experts from external sides. So we can have peer conversations with other, let's say, surgeons or other healthcare professionals and make sure that their voices are heard, integrated into our ideation and designs, and also making sure that we are able to translate the language of medical professionals into the language of our engineers and other developers.
Okay, so that brings us to the next question. Obviously, what strategies have you found most effective in engaging with key opinion leaders and fostering collaboration with these people?
I think the most important aspect when medical affairs teams engage with key opinion leaders or other external parties is to make sure we are considered and accepted as being highly driven by evidence and integrity. So we need to be considered as independent from commercial and marketing and rather a voice of the customer and the patient. So integrity, independence are really key for us to being able to have a good relationship with KOLs. And also in having these communications, we need to have peer level communications. So it's important to have, if we consider HCPs, having HCPs in our own team. So surgeons talking to surgeons brings a conversation to a completely different level of communication. And it also improves how we are considered and how we are respected by our peers and by our KOLs. So this really helps us. Also, it shouldn't be a one touch point only. Having and building a relationship over a time is really helpful. So for me, it's really integrity, but also relationship building over time as two crucial things to consider.
Okay, so how do medical affairs support market access and government affairs in the medtech space?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. So market access, I think in some companies, medical affairs may even be closer to market access or overlap. In our company, we are two different departments, but we definitely collaborate when it's needed. And maybe to give a practical example for market access, we were facing a change in a regional market of regulations for reimbursement that heavily impacted a lot of our portfolio and also a lot of other companies. And medical affairs was able to support our market access team by providing medical expertise, making sure our dossiers and assessments of medical devices that are affected are appropriate, clinically accurate, but also helping us to gather the right information for our dossiers to be submitted to the regulator and making sure it's scientifically sound, but also that we are focusing on the key clinical message we want to convey. And here medical affairs, again, can support these market access experts with required medical knowledge to really make sense or the best sense out of the clinical data we have. On the side of governmental affairs, I'd say It again overlaps slightly with market access, so it can be a market access activity. But for me, it also includes making sure we have our right advocacy for companies and for our interests in the industry. So it could be working with medtech associations like AdvaMed in the United States or MedTech Europe in the European Union. And here, medical affairs can again be the link of the company into these associations to make sure that our interests, our voices are heard, and we can influence, for example, regulations. Considering just right now, there is a new ISO for medical evaluation being developed. And through MedTech Europe, we are able to review the draft and provide our medical expertise and input into the draft.
Okay, that's excellent. Thank you. Would you be able to share, Kolja, could you share an example where medical affairs have played a critical role in addressing challenges in market access or education?
So the market access example I just provided, I think this is one where we really played a crucial role. And I think in the end, we support the company with lots of medical expertise to really enable us to make a selection of the devices we can support. We feel confident to support it for the new reimbursement regulations, but also when it came to dossiers, writing the dossiers, providing input into medical writing, making sound justifications. And in the end, I think in a lot of cases, we can say we were quite successful with our approaches, but also on the same project, there was a consortium of multiple manufacturers that were all facing the same thing, and medical affairs helped market access significantly in having communications with other companies to make sure we are working towards the same goal with writing white papers and supporting the industry globally. And here, a lot of the content was medical knowledge and content, and we had peer conversation with similar roles like myself, or my role in the industry. So having these peer conversation with other medical directors in other companies gave us the opportunity to really talk about the relevant aspects of our approaches, drive a good strategy that can help the industry in general, but also our own company, and make sure that our patients are able to still receive the right, not implants, but devices in this case.
Okay, so what do you see as the biggest opportunities and challenges for medical affairs in the evolving medtech landscape?
So I think most important right now, it's everywhere, it's AI. We can't kind of get around the question what AI plays in the future, what role, but it's not the only thing. It's technology development. AI is a part of new technologies and digitalization and everything, but I think it's not the only aspect. And the other thing that we really have to consider as challenges in the future, or things that we need to consider, is the regulatory environment that is constantly changing and evolving. So these are our two challenges and opportunities we have to deal with. And I wouldn't say that both are either challenge or opportunity, both can be both. So for AI, it's definitely, or large language modules, AI, whatever we want to call it, it provides amazing potential how we can use it. We can use it to better collect clinical evidence. We can make it to help us make better decisions for benefit risk assessments, for example, or how to manage data and make sure we are always compliant with regulations.
Okay, so regarding this particular change in landscapes, with your role as a medical affairs professional, tell me about the growing emphasis on digital health and value-based care.
So digital health is one of the most important changes we are facing right now. We are still, the industry is sometimes very old-fashioned. I know there are still studies being performed with paper-based questionnaires, but in the future, digitalization will really drive the future of medical affairs, or how we generate evidence. Digitalization includes having electronic patient records from hospitals. We can consider big data. We don't need to look at a specific single patient chart, but big data really becomes reality now, and we can work instead of single clinical studies where we have a very defined patient population that is positive on one hand, but also a limitation on the other hand, we can use real-world evidence more and more. So digitalization and digital involvement will help us to have much more clinical data to work with, but we also need to consider how are we able to really make sense out of this data, because it comes from less structured experiences. And again, digitalization can then help us to create or methods that help us to understand the data we are facing and make sense out of it.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Tell me, what innovations in medtech excite you the most right now, and how do you see medical affairs supporting these sorts of advancements?
So besides AI, I think practically, as with my surgical background, I'm really interested in robotic surgery. I don't think we can eliminate the human in the loop. I think the human is crucial, and having somebody being even responsible for what's happening is important. But robots are more and more evolving. I think they will play a significant role in the future of surgery, but potentially also other technologies in the medtech industry. And they can really redefine and reshape how we think surgery is performed.
I couldn't agree more. I think robotics is a big enabler for all of us. So what advice would you give someone aspiring to build a career in the medical affairs industry and in the medtech industry?
So generally, I think what you need to bring with you if you want to have a career in medtech industry and in particular medical affairs is you need to be driven by curiosity. Curiosity is really, for me, the most important driver. When you're interested in learning and understanding things, that's already a very, very good foundation. You don't necessarily have to have a medical degree or be a healthcare professional. So medical affairs can be a very broad concept and support companies in so many different ways. But in some aspects, it definitely helps to have a medical background to a degree. But if you want to start a career, essentially, almost with any background, you may be able to start a career and then grow into it. With your curiosity about learning, engaging with stakeholders, so having good communication skills, you can kind of grow into these roles. But you need to be able to learn about medical content, and you need to be able to learn regulatory facts, because in the end, in medical affairs, we are always facing an environment with lots of regulations, and we need to understand these regulations. We can't fully trust a regulatory team to tell us everything, so we need to have this knowledge as well.
That's interesting. So if you could change one thing about medical affairs roles, what would it be in today's world?
Probably making medical affairs more visible and getting a little bit more into it becoming a strategic role. In some companies, it may already be that way, but in particular in medtech, it's all over the place. Every company has a slightly different approach, what they even consider medical affairs. But often we are more in the background and we don't have a lot of visibility. But I think we can provide strategic guidance. We do that every day, but we can gain more visibility and more acknowledgement in doing that, and really putting the patient first and making sure that all companies in the medical industry are really patient-centric.
I would love to see medical affairs personally help secure real-world evidence, because I think they would be that's an additional ideal role for them to be involved in. It's patient-facing, it's engineering-facing. It looks after health technology and reimbursement, market access. So I see that as a missing link in medtech.
Yeah, I can't agree more. I think sometimes we are like a spider in a web. We are connected to all the dots within the company. So it could be, as you mentioned, new product development, engineering, risk management, quality affairs, regulatory affairs, but even medical education. We can be patient-facing. We can foster communication with KOLs. Medical science liaisons, very common in the pharmaceutical industry, less so in the medtech industry.
Yes.
But all these things are different phases of medical affairs. So yeah, essentially, if you look close enough, you will see our involvement in almost every part of a medical device company.
I do, I see. And it varies in different companies and company to company. Tell me, in a closing statement, what would you like to say to young medical affairs specialists in medtech, what would you like to share with them?
I think it's really, as I stated before, be curious, just get started. So if you want to join the medical device industry in medical affairs, do it. Reach out to your peers, check maybe LinkedIn connections, and just get in touch with somebody and reach out to professionals and learn from them.
Okay, that's fantastic. It's been lovely to see you, and thank you very much for your time today. And I look forward to encountering you again very shortly, okay?
Yeah, it was a great pleasure meeting you again, Stephen. Have a great day. And yeah,
All right,
talk to you
sir.
soon.
Okay, talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.